Show. You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Looking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. It almost feels like we're working towards the weekend on this Tuesday. It's a short week for just about everybody involved. Hope your Thanksgiving week is off to a great start. We got Jacob Beck and Casey Gaines back there on the ones and twos. We're rocking and rolling here on this Tuesday. Michael Rothstein from ESPN.com covers the Atlanta Falcons. Going to be with us in 15 minutes as the Saints head to the ATL this weekend. Glenn West in his normal Tuesday spot at 1:30. We'll be talking football and basketball with Glenn. Jay Johnson met with the media yesterday. I will have some thoughts on that at the top of hour number 2. Sharif Ishak is always with us at 2:30, talking Saints and Pels. So we will do that as well. Appreciate you hanging out with us here any way that you may be doing so, whether you're on YouTube, hanging out with us in the car, or at work. We're going to be having some fun here over the next 2 hours. Brian Kelly met with the media yesterday. He covered a myriad of topics, a lot of Senior Day, a lot of Jaden Daniels, a lot of Texas A&M. One of the bites that he talked about resonated with me specifically because we know that Brian Kelly inherited a bit of a mess when he got here. You're well aware of the team that took the field for LSU in the Texas Bowl. You're well aware of the scholarship numbers and the fact that there was a wide receiver playing quarterback, and there was a exodus into the transfer portal, and the roster had been cut down to the bones. And so if you're Brian Kelly and you've got the Notre Dame job and your program's churning out 10 wins a year, and every December, you show up and you know that there are some holes you need to fill, some positions you need to address, and generally speaking, things are on good footing, but we got to supplement some here or there. That's one thing. Coming in and going, good Lord, I got to assemble an entire staff and fix this entire roster. That's something entirely different. And so when he said yesterday where he felt he needed to start, I thought that was interesting. This is Brian Kelly on his offensive line when he got to Baton Rouge.
It was job one. It was the first thing that I had identified that we needed to address before we got into anything else was the offensive line. I just feel like you can't put an offense together until you put your offensive line together. And then we'll build it out from there. Now, obviously, we have to focus defensively and build that defense to the level that the offense has been built. And then we'll have the kind of roster and balance that we need to win a championship.
He said the offensive line was job number one. Let's go back and connect the dots here to how things got to where they are today and where they were when Brian Kelly took over. Back in 2021, James Craig was fired right at the end of May. And Brad Davis was hired at LSU on June the 4th. Now, Brad Davis came in on June the 4th, and that is a dead period in terms of practice. You cannot coach your guys in June. They're with the strength staff. You're recruiting, you're running camps, you're analyzing film. That's what your day is spent doing as a position coach. You are not coaching your guys. And he couldn't do that until camp started in August. And so when he took that job and took that 2-month period of not coaching and starting in August, all of a sudden he goes out there and guys are getting hurt left and right and missing practices. He could not at any point put the 5 guys he wanted, and not that he had evaluated them all that well because he hadn't coached them, but he couldn't get 5 guys out there to develop any sort of continuity because everybody kept getting hurt. So they went out there against UCLA in the Rose Bowl. They started Cam Wire at left tackle, Ed Ingram at left guard, Liam Shanahan, a transfer from Harvard, at center, Anthony Bradford at right guard, and Austin Deculus at right tackle. Chasen Hines played a little bit that year, but he got hurt. Xavier Hill, who was a true freshman, was asked to make 2 starts. Garrett Dellinger, who was a true freshman, was asked to start 3 games. You didn't have SEC talent level across the board, certainly not at center or left tackle. And then you had injuries galore. It was a mess in 2021. They were awful. And that's Ed Ogeron's last year on the job. And so Brian Kelly takes over, and immediately, here we go. They had Will Campbell, who was committed to the previous staff, but they got him in. They had Emory Jones, 2 in-state tackles that were very highly thought of. They brought in Miles Frazier. All 3 of those were big hits. Campbell's been as advertised. Jones has been as advertised. Frazier's been rock solid. They brought in Tremont Shorts. They brought in Bo Bordelon. Shorts didn't play a ton. Bordelon seems like he's developing quite nicely early in his LSU campaign. 2023, they add Lance Hurd, DJ Chester, Paul Mabanga, Tyree Adams, Mason Lunsford as a transfer from Maryland. That's 11 additions they brought in 2 years. And they were smart additions. Transfer portal for depth pieces and eventual starters, and high-end high school guys that fit the profile that Brian Kelly has talked about since his first press conference at LSU. And what's the result? 2 years after Brad Davis took this gig, 2.5 years now, what's the result? Well, you've had remarkable continuity up front. That took some time. They made some mistakes in the Florida State game in the Superdome, but they corrected them. You've allowed 20 total sacks this year. That's 4th best in the SEC. And the worst output that your offensive line has produced this year was the Florida State game where they had 4. Since then, that's been the season high. No one else has gotten 4 sacks against LSU since the first week of the season. And this LSU offensive line has allowed 31 tackles for loss on the season. That's best in the SEC. Now, this is what's more impressive than them being best in the SEC in that category. I mentioned 31 TFLs allowed. What's second place? 43. 12 more on the season. That's a sizable gap in TFLs allowed. Now, we'll see what happens on Saturday night because Texas A&M is a force on the defensive front. They are second nationally in tackles for loss. They produce 8.5 TFLs per game. LSU gives up less than 3. That's a huge piece to this puzzle. Now, all that being said, and I think that Brian Kelly and Brad Davis and these players on the offensive front have done a great job for 2.5 years to go from a battered, ragtag, underperforming position unit to a solid group up front. And I think that's perfectly fair to say. I also think that the quarterback helps tremendously. Because in the same way that I think Joe Burrow propped up the 2019 offensive line to a level that their talent may not have been at to win the Joe Moore Award because he was so good at 1, understanding pre-snap, and 2, moving in the pocket. Jaden Daniels has been really, really good in pre-snap as well. The balls come out very, very quickly and decisively. And if you miss a block, he'll probably run away from the guy. Let's just be honest. And that's going to be a huge piece to this game. We're starting to dip our toe into A&M prep here. It's early in the week, but we're missing a Thursday show. And you've got a bunch of big, strong, physical, 5-star dudes. Walter Nolan, Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart, Edgerrin Cooper at linebacker, like a big group of physical dudes who have made a living in people's backfields this year. The question for A&M is, can those 260, 270, 305-pound defensive linemen get to Jaden Daniels if they beat LSU's offensive line? I know my answer. I don't think they can. They might once. They might twice. They won't 5 or 6 times, which is what this A&M defense has made a living on. They love creating those negative plays and stalling a drive. It's not that they're great in coverage. They're not. They create plays that put you behind the sticks, and then they rush the passer. And teams that have tried to rush Jaden Daniels this year have had almost no success. Almost none. Think of Bama. They won with coverage when Jaden Daniels was in there, and they won, which wasn't all that often. But you remember, because it looks so easy for LSU almost all year long. When there's a little bit of resistance, which Alabama did provide, you notice it, and it was in coverage. It wasn't that they were getting a ton of pressure on Jaden. It wasn't that he didn't have time to throw or that he was getting hit all night. He got hit the one time. But Bama did a good job in getting their hand up for a tipped interception and then had the one shot that knocked him out of the game. That's A&M's only chance defensively, is to make plays behind the line of scrimmage. This LSU offensive line, which has been retooled on like a journey over the last 2.5 years, is going to face a really stiff test on Saturday. But as Brian Kelly said, job one when he got here was to fortify that offensive line. And to this point, I would suggest they've done a really good job of that with a little bit of help from the most agile quarterback in college football. And that marriage between those two has created opportunities for LSU to make play after play after play, whether it's Jaden Daniels in the run game, scramble game, or having the time to take shots down the field where you've got the nation's leading receiver and the nation's leading touchdown receiver. It's a well-oiled machine that LSU's got. And I would submit, like 2019, the skill players are probably better than the offensive line, but the offensive line's ability to hold its own and be dominant at times has created an offense that no one's found out how to figure out. We'll see Saturday night in Death Valley against a really, really good defensive front. Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're rolling right along here. Let me remind you about Pluckers because it is a holiday week. Some college kids out of school. What's a little different routine? We're going to be at Pluckers. 8:30 Nicholson location. We'll be watching some college hoops, playing some sports trivia. Grab a team or just come by yourself. You can do that as well. Just makes things a little tougher on you. And play some sports trivia. We give out gift cards, $15 to first place every round, $5 to second place every round. You can drink some cold beers, eat some delicious food as well. We always have a good time at Pluckers on Nicholson, so come on by and see us tonight at 8:30. When we come back, Michael Rothstein covers the Falcons. We'll talk about Falcons and the Saints and the Dirty Birds coming up next.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Love telling you about Jersey Mike's, our friends, Highway 30 in Gonzales near the new Heritage Shopping Center. Just an awesome, awesome sandwich eating experience when you go in there. Whether it's the cold subs like the club sub or the original Italian, it's fresh baked bread. It's meat sliced right in front of you. It's fantastic quality of ingredients. Or you can get the hot subs. I love the Bacon Ranch Chicken Cheesesteak. You order it, they put that chicken right there on the griddle, chop it up, melt the cheese over it. Gets the job done every time. We always want to tell you about those catering orders. Highway 30 in Gonzales. Tell them the Hunt Palmer Show sent you 20% off, whether you're feeding the office, feeding a big family that's in town, or just feeding a high school football team like they've done the last 3 weekends out there at Jersey Mike's. Download the app. You can get them on DoorDash as well. It's Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
The world's leaders in obesity research, obesity medicine, and obesity science are right here.
We're doing something that no one's ever done or trying to answer a question that no one's ever asked before.
Pennington is a real jewel when it comes to research.
We are finding the solutions to the world's worst chronic disease, which is obesity. Louisiana needs Pennington Biomedical.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $20,000 off MSRP on new 23 Ram 1500 trucks. $20,000 off plus no payments for 90 days on new 23 Ram 1500 trucks. All with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Voisin inviting you to join me and Coach Todd Black Wednesday night at 6 for Louisiana Prep Weekly. Our special guest will be Notre Dame head football coach Louis Cook. It's Louisiana Prep Weekly, live from Walk-Ons in Town Center, Wednesday night at 6 on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Moving right along here, Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Let's head out to the Jim's Firearms Hotlines where we'll find Michael Rothstein. He covers the Atlanta Falcons for ESPN. Of course, Falcons and Saints coming up Sunday. A couple teams coming off of a bye. Michael, thanks for the time. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing quite well in this holiday week. The entire NFC South is just an interesting discussion because of where each franchise may consider itself at this point. Falcons got off to a 2-0 start, and it's been a little bumpy since then. Now a couple of quarterback changes. Where's the energy? Where are the vibes around that Falcons football program right now?
I mean, listen, they know that things need to change from how they've been playing, losing 3 in a row, 6 of 8, playing a little bit of quarterback carousel, for lack of a better term, although that has stopped as Desmond Ridder is going to be the guy going forward. All of that being said, for a 4-6 team, they are very confident. They know that they have a good opportunity in front of them, and they know that if they win on Sunday, they will be in first place in the NFC South at 5-6. Because sure. So, I mean, that's just kind of what they're dealing with. But don't forget, for teams in the NFC South, this is not new. Last year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the NFC South with an under 500 record.
That is true, and that's what keeps all these teams fairly interesting, although they're not playing great football. So, Desmond Ridder started the season as the starting quarterback. What did he do well in his time as the starter to begin the season?
Well, okay, so first of all, he's very good with his zone read. That's led to 4 rushing touchdowns this year. And part of that, too, is that you have 2 very talented backs in Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, who will force defense's attention, and maybe teams won't focus as much on Desmond Ridder in the zone read. So he keeps it and goes and scores touchdowns. And it would have been 5 touchdowns except for the fumble in Tampa Bay, which is one of the issues with Desmond Ridder, which was the turnovers. Now, obviously, the Falcons are hoping those turnovers, we're talking 6 interceptions, 6 fumbles lost, will get remedied, and that's just a young quarterback kind of overthinking and just making mistakes, But when Desmond Ridder was playing, you saw some level of improvement, we'll call it, in terms of the passing game, in terms of his read, in terms of making good decisions, in terms of pushing the ball into intermediate and deep spaces down the field. That was something in week 1, week 2, didn't really see much of, but really until he got benched, you were starting wanting to see more of it. The reason he was benched was not because he was being timid or because they were not happy with maybe his completion percentage. That's not the case at all. He was benched for a multitude of factors, largely surrounding the turnovers, and I would go even further and say the fumbles, because he's just the interceptions are what they are in terms of having 6 of them, and 3 of them came in one game, and you went from there.
So as far as the offense goes, I've seen a lot of chatter about Bijan Robinson kind of from the outside and his involvement in the offense. Where are the Falcons with their rookie tailback?
Yeah, all right. I mean, I can go on. How many seconds do we have?
We got one, but we still got like 8 minutes left, so fire away. I'm curious.
Okay. Do not buy into the Bijan. By the way, it's Bijan. His mom is this Bijan. Bijan says he doesn't care, so it becomes a completely kind of nebulous how you address him as Bijan or Bijan. He will answer to both. But the thing is, with his usage, people are just focused in a fantasy football world, and they're focused in a red zone touchdown world. Bijan Robinson leads the Falcons in touches, and that is even with a game where he only had 1 touch due to illness and headache. He was going into the bye leading the NFL in at least among running backs in routes run. And he's been a very productive back. We're talking about a guy that's still probably going to have somewhere between 1,500 and 1,700 all-purpose yards this year as long as he stays healthy the rest of the way. The one kind of issue was touchdowns and his touches in the red zone. Now, the Falcons gave him touches in the red zone against Arizona. He scored a touchdown against Arizona. But they were really also trying to ramp him up instead of running him out there and burning him out at the start of the season, because he hasn't played a season like this before. And we hear that from every coach and every team all across the league when they're talking about rookies and working them in. But the Falcons had a very clear plan with Bijan Robinson, but it wasn't that he wasn't being used. It's just he wasn't being used the way that maybe people expected him to be, although if you had listened to the Falcons coaches from when they drafted him, they said he's not just a running back. He's an offensive option for us. He's an offensive, you can move him everywhere, and that's what they've done. They've used him out of the backfield. He's lined up in the slot. He's lined up outside. He's run a ton of routes. He's essentially their slot receiver, and he's one of their 2 key running backs along with Tyler Algier. That's how he's used. It's just not necessarily the way certain people think or wanted him to be used.
Makes a lot of sense. And look, I can't claim to have watched every snap the Falcons have played this year, but when he gets 1 touch in a game, that comes out on Twitter all over the place, and the red zone stuff was fairly well documented as well. So very well said, Michael. Appreciate that being cleared up. Michael Rothstein is our guest, ESPN reporter covering the Atlanta Falcons, Saints and Falcons, coming up on Sunday from the ATL. Defensively, the last 3 weeks haven't looked great on paper. Where would you say the strength of this Falcons defense lies?
Well, they haven't looked great in real life either, man.
Yeah.
Paper, real life, take your pick, has not looked good. The loss of Grady Jarrett in the middle of that defensive front has been a bigger problem than I think you could have even imagined. And you couldn't have imagined it necessarily because Grady Jarrett had been so healthy throughout his career. But what he did was he distracted so much attention that freed up David Onyemata, obviously Saints fans are familiar with, freed up Calais Campbell, freed up some of their edge rushers. It allowed them to do a lot and be stout against the run as well. The strength of this team is very much in its secondary. Richie Grant has not played particularly well of late, but Jesse Bates is one of the best safeties in the NFL. Falcons paid him like that in the offseason, and A.J. Terrell and Jeff Okudah are one of the better young tandems of cornerbacks in the NFL. Jeff Okudah, specifically the former number 3 overall pick back when he was in Detroit, is having a renaissance season. He has been quite good all year long. And that has been where I think the defense has had its strength. Now, all of that said, the last 3 weeks have been pretty rough. And they need to figure out a way to make up for Grady Jarrett's loss. And they also lost Troy Anderson, although that was early in the season. He was replaced well by Nate Landman. But they lost Troy Anderson, who is a great sideline-to-sideline linebacker and a pretty good downhill linebacker as well, and could cover. And that had forced them to do a little alteration as well. They handled that well. But Grady Jarrett is a massive piece to this defense, and it'll be very curious to see what this looks like now that they've had a week to kind of sit back and say, how do you handle this after having to go back-to-back-to-back, just kind of surviving and, frankly, dealing with mobile quarterbacks in Kyler Murray in his first start back, Josh Dobbs after Jaron Hall got hurt, and Will Levis. And specifically with that, Jaron Hall, Josh Dobbs, completely different quarterbacks. They kind of prepared for what Josh Dobbs would have looked like in that Minnesota offense, because I don't think Minnesota knew what Josh Dobbs was going to look like in that Minnesota offense, considering he hadn't taken a single snap with the team at that point.
So kind of a big picture question here, Michael. With the Ryan and Breeze battles over that decade, there were a lot of 10-11 win teams going against each other, high stakes. The rivalry was heated, and that's all great. First place still is kind of on the line this weekend, but we're talking about a Falcons team that's lost 3 in a row, 4 of 5, and a Saints team that's middling around 500 again, and there's just not a real lot of buzz in the city just about the Saints. So, what kind of environment do you expect on Sunday, and what's the feeling in the fan base about where the organization is headed?
Oh, man. I don't know what to expect on Sunday.
Yeah.
I could see not an empty stadium, but I could see a stadium that doesn't have a ton of people in it. And I think if it was any team other than the Saints, you might see that. I could see a stadium that has a lot of Saints fans that show up. I think you could see a stadium that's split 50-50. The one thing I don't think you'll see necessarily is a stadium full of Falcons fans, because I've been covering this team over 2 years now. I have not seen that yet.
Okay.
There have been times where they have gotten very loud, but it has not been with any level of consistency. And as you said, they're 4-6. There's not a ton of hype or buzz around this team right now. If anything, there's more criticism than anything else. It'll be really curious to see how the Falcons handle that atmosphere early on. To me, they need, in order to kind of get the fan base back going a little bit, Desmond Ridder needs to play well early. If Desmond Ridder does not play well early, if fans are not happy with some of the play calling early, it can get really. I'm very curious to see how that will play in Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Sunday, because the fan base, at least part of the fan base, the vocal part of the fan base, seems very frustrated. But I think you could say that about, 30 of the NFL's 32 teams. That's the vocal part of the fan base is going to be frustrated. So I don't read totally into that. But those are also very often the people that go to games too.
For sure, and I think that just these 4 teams in the South, I don't think that any of their fan bases are just fired up about where things are headed. I certainly know that is the case here in New Orleans, that people were just kind of bored with the whole thing and disappointed in a lot of what's going on, and it just feels like that's the case in all 4 spots. I mean, you're going to these venues. I mean, am I way off base here?
No, you're not. I mean, you're really not. Listen, to me, all 4 teams going into the season had major question marks. All of them at quarterback. Every team had a question at quarterback, and some had questions other places. And I think what we're seeing is all these teams still have major question marks, right? I don't think many people necessarily think Baker Mayfield's the answer in Tampa. Derek Carr's been up and down. He's looked really good at points, but there are other issues with this Saints team. Atlanta, I'm not ready to walk away from Desmond Ridder yet, but these next 7 games are going to tell you a heck of a lot about Desmond Ridder and maybe the future of where this Falcons team is going to be. And then Carolina, I mean, man, that team's just one of the worst in the NFL right now. And I mean, you go. Listen, I covered the Detroit Lions, who are now one of the best teams in the NFL, for many years, and there were many seasons like this in Detroit. And the difference to me is that Lions fans almost always showed up. And I think in some of the other stadiums, you're not necessarily seeing that if the team isn't doing well. And the Falcons went up to Detroit earlier this year, and I thought I'd heard it loud before because they had some really big moments when I was covering that team, even though it was not consistent. And I'll tell you, man, that place, you see what it is when that team is good, and I think we've seen it in the Superdome when the Saints are good, right? We haven't really seen it at Mercedes-Benz Stadium because other than 2017, they have not been. So I'm very curious to see what will happen if some of these teams get good, what this fan base is like then, because right now, at least across the NFC South, we're seeing that it's, it's a lot of money to do an NFL game, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. So I don't know. I mean, I live in the mantra of if it doesn't bring you joy, why do it? And especially if it's not something that's bringing you money, right? So that's a question that if fan bases probably are asking themselves, or individual fans are like, do I want to spend the money to go to this game if I'm not happy with what I see? That's a fair question.
It sure is, and we'll see what happens on Sunday. All that said, first place in the South is on the line. Michael Rosty.
And that's the thing. That's what could make this place really loud and really interesting, is because it is the Saints and first place is on the line, and I think people will recognize that.
We'll certainly see.
I don't know.
Yeah, Michael, we appreciate the time, man. Happy Thanksgiving.
Take care. Bye.
Michael Rothstein covers the Falcons for ESPN. We'll step aside. Come back with Glenn West talking Tigers on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
LWCC is Louisiana loyal. They're elevating and celebrating champions of Louisiana. Marucci Sports, champion of Louisiana. Help out the state in terms of tourism with their the Marucci World Series. They help out the state in terms of attracting and acquiring talent to work here in their baseball performance lab. Started right here in the capital city, just carving out bats in the backyard. Now they're among the leaders in baseball equipment and performance. Fantastic story right here in the capital city of Louisiana. If you know a champion of Louisiana like Marucci Sports, go nominate them at lwcc.com so that they can tell their story and we can help them right here on the Hunt Palmer Show. Could be a business, could be a nonprofit, could be a person. Marucci Sports, certainly a champion of Louisiana. LWCC is Louisiana loyal.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Bayou Ford is taking $10,000 off MSRP on all new 23 Ford F-150 Black Widow trucks, plus $2,750 discount APR and 5.9% for 72 months. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
It was a humid day, barefoot children play, looking for that summer shade. Time just slips away. Oh, Louisiana, some kind of hold on me. Like cypress stumps, your roots are planted deep inside of me.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our number one product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online at reliefwindows.com.
Bayou Ford is taking $10,000 off MSRP on all new 23 Ford F-150 Black Widow trucks, plus $2,750 discount APR and 5.9% for 72 months. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Running Boards Marketing can help you get their attention. Imagine your brand's message on a giant LED billboard truck that can't be skipped and is nearly impossible to ignore. Running Boards Marketing is the leader in effective and affordable advertising on digital mobile billboards, which are 2 times more effective than traditional billboards. With a 97% recall rate, you'll leave a lasting impression with your customers.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Would a couple that just came from a couples massage have any use for the massage seats of the Infiniti QX60? Yes, it appears they would. With driver and passenger massage seats, Mute all your notifications and feel infinitely you.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal.
On Thanksgiving Day, as we bring you 3 different NFL games. The early kickoff is the Packers and Lions. Immediately following that, it's Commanders and Cowboys. And then the late game, the 49ers at Seahawks. Again, catch all of these on Thanksgiving Day right here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Back out to the Jim's Firearms Hotline we go. Glenn West, senior writer, Go 24/7, joins us every single Tuesday and does so now. Glenn, how are you?
I'm doing well, Hunt. How are you?
Doing quite well. Not a lot to glean from Saturday night, I wouldn't imagine. But what was your biggest takeaway from LSU's win Saturday night in Death Valley?
Where to start? I would say the 8 touchdowns that Jaden Daniels threw and ran for would be a good starting point. Look, I'm not going to be, overly, just dramatic about the performance. I mean, it was an amazing night for him. Obviously, the LSU is really leaning into this, Heisman Trophy case, and I think you could definitely see that with him playing the majority of 3 quarters and even into the fourth a little bit, if I'm not mistaken. So, they came out and they handled their business. The fact that the bigger takeaway I have is the fact that this offense has gone 13 touchdowns on its last 13 drives, dating back to the Florida game 2 weeks ago. That's just incredibly hard to do. I don't care the opponent that you're facing. That level of efficiency and consistency is just it's really remarkable. And when you factor in the fact that you haven't had one of your better running backs in Logan Diggs for the last couple of weeks, and just the way that Jaden Daniels continues to just kind of put this team on his back and do it all for him from a running perspective, and certainly through the air with what he's doing with Brian Thomas and Kyron Lacey and Malik Neighbors, of course. It's one of the more entertaining offenses that we've ever seen here, and I think it's just been a joy to watch the last couple of weeks as they kind of put up these really gaudy numbers to close out the season.
You think A&M's defense, as good as it's been statistically, can slow them down?
I think that they have as good a chance as anybody. Look, the thing about A&M's defense is that they get into the backfield on you. This is going to be a real test for the LSU offensive line. I mean, I'm just kind of looking at the stats right now. They have 94 tackles for losses and 40 sacks between all of their edge rushers and linebackers, and that's an incredibly high number. I didn't really do a whole deep dive into them until today. But they have some real pass rushers. Obviously, Shamar Turner, Edgerrin Cooper, Walter Nolan is the former 5-star, number 2 or 3 overall player in the country. They've got a lot of talent on that defensive side of the ball, and it's going to be a real chess match, I think, between can those guys get into the backfield, 1, and 2, are they going to be the team that's finally able to get to Jaden Daniels? Or is Daniels still going to be able to do what he's been doing all season and evade pressure and stay in the pocket, deliver accurate on down the field throws, escape the pocket when he needs to, and pick up big yards with his legs that way? That's going to be the big matchup to me as I kind of dissect and look at this matchup a little bit more. Is Daniels versus the pass rush and the pressure that A&M's going to try to get on him.
Look, you mentioned the gaudy tackles for loss numbers from Texas A&M. LSU's only allowed 31 TFLs all year. That leads the SEC, and it's 12 better than second place. I led that with that in my first segment here. As you mentioned, A&M's second nationally in tackles for loss. They get 8.5 of those per game. So if you just look at it from the LSU perspective and that they've only allowed 31 tackles for loss this year, is that because the offensive line has been so good, or is that because Jaden Daniels and this group of running backs has been so elusive?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. I mean, I think Logan Diggs, when he's in there, can give you that elusivity when he's in there as a running back. But certainly with what Jaden's doing, I think the pass blocking from guys like Josh Williams can't go understated as well. I mean, Josh Williams has just laid some haymakers the last couple of weeks from a pass blocking perspective. He's been real. I think he could have a real role in this game plan as well, even though Logan Diggs is looking like he's going to be on track to return. But yeah, I mean, look, the offensive line I think is going to be tested really like it hasn't been tested since that Florida State game. I mean, I do think that they held up pretty well against Alabama, and they did a nice job, obviously, of moving the offense in that game. But second half against Florida State, that was the one half where I think you can look at all season and say that things just kind of crumbled for LSU and for the LSU offense, and they just weren't able to quite recover. We haven't really seen that since then, and I think that's a really good sign that your group has improved tremendously, and that's why they're in the conversation for a Joe Moore Award at the end of the year. But this is where you kind of win that award. I think you go out and you have a really good game against a team that, like you mentioned, is second in the nation in tackles for loss. That definitely helps your chances, and will certainly open things up for Jaden and the running backs and the rest of this offense.
I'd be surprised if Mac Johnson played on Saturday morning. Been held out the last couple of weeks. Feels like probably some broken ribs, although that's just speculation on my part. Jalen Henderson, third-team quarterback, transfer from out west, played a little bit against Abilene Christian. Any reason to believe LSU's defense can slow A&M down with a third-string quarterback?
I hope so. I sure hope so, Hunt. Look, the first couple drives against Georgia State were not great. I don't think I have to break any news. They did not look very in sync at all the first quarter and change of that game. Look, everybody's wondering what kind of changes are coming in the offseason. And look, I'm not going to debunk anything. I wouldn't be surprised if anything happens with the defense, with the way this season has gone for that side of the ball. But the biggest thing that I want to see from this group in the final game is just show me some level of pulse from some of the guys that you're hoping to get back. Just can you get some level of consistency from a guy like Mason Smith up front? Can he make an impact? Can Parrish Shand and Braden Swinson, Harold Perkins, some of these young defensive backs, can they get some good film on tape for the off season? I mean, I really just want to see these guys just get some good consistency together for this final game. And against a third-string quarterback, like you mentioned, I think that gives you as good a chance as any to try to see if you can't get something going. I mean, they have some really talented playmakers. I mean, Le'Veon Moss and Reuben Owens are former high 4-star, 5-star caliber players at the running back position. Evan Stewart is a really dynamic receiver. Anaya Smith has done a really nice job this year. It's kind of one of the more veteran leaders of that group. So there's going to be a lot of talent on that side of the ball. I'd just like to see LSU and some of the people that they're hoping to get back next year make a little bit more of a difference in this game than they've been able to show, I think, throughout the rest of the regular season.
Jaden Daniels going to win the Heisman?
I think if he doesn't win, he won't lose any sleep over it. I mean, he has positioned himself as good as well as possible over these final 3 weeks. I thought after Alabama that they had no shot. I thought that there was just no shot that he would be able to climb back into that race. At the time, it looked like he would be. He might miss time. I mean, after that Alabama game, nobody was really sure of his status. And what does he do? He comes back and puts up record-breaking performances in back-to-back weeks. I mean, it's really incredible. And the fact that he's bounced back the way that he has after that tough Bama loss has been it has been a Heisman kind of moment for him. I think that most quarterbacks in that situation, they might crumble a little bit. They might just kind of say, "Oh, all right, our time has passed." Jaden's come out and he's attacked this thing head on the last couple of weeks. He's put up some really, really big numbers. And if he's able to get, around his averages again this week against this defense, I think that he'll put himself in as good a position as he possibly can. He can't control what Bo Nix does, what Michael Penix does, but he can control what he does. And he's done a really nice job of kind of asserting himself as one of the lead candidates in this race. And I think you're starting to see a lot of the national writers and big, Sports Center and ESPNs and all these guys are starting to take notice of it.
Do you think Jaden Daniels is going to win the Heisman?
Yes. Let's go. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Enjoy the holiday, Glenn, and we'll catch up next week.
All right, Hunt. Thank you.
Glenn West, senior writer at Go 24/7. All your recruiting needs, all your team coverage needs. Glenn got you covered for football, baseball, and basketball as well. Speaking of baseball, I'll chat a little bit about Jay Johnson's fall wrap-up coming up in 15 minutes. When we come back, a little bit of an awkward exchange at the PMAC in the press room last night. I'll discuss it next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $20,000 off MSRP on new 23 Ram 1500 trucks. $20,000 off plus no payments for 90 days on new 23 Ram 1500 trucks. All with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, party plank, and vinyl siding. But our number one product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online at reliefwindows.com. Oh, by the way, we do shutters too.
Running Boards Marketing can help you get their attention. Imagine your brand's message on a giant LED billboard truck that can't be skipped and is nearly impossible to ignore. Running Boards Marketing is the leader in effective and affordable advertising on digital mobile billboards, which are 2 times more effective than traditional billboards. With a 97% recall rate, you'll leave a lasting impression with your customers.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
The importance of doing this Fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
You know, we're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance jobs, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible. Let's sit down and talk about the Fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a Fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. I think we're rocking and rolling.
The interior of an Infiniti is thoughtfully designed to be all about you. And by you, we mean every version of you. Because there's luxury you can feel, and there's luxury that lets you feel. Infinitely you. Experience luxury like never before with Infiniti Premium Care, included with the 2023 QX80 at your local retailer.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Final week in the Prep Football Playoffs, and we get started Friday night at 6 with Louisiana Prep Preview presented by Brock. Catholic High and John Curtis kick off at 7, and that's immediately followed by Louisiana Prep Scoreboard presented by Lake Urgent Care. On YouTube, Your View, and 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Wrapping up hour one here. Last night, LSU's women's basketball team got a huge win in the PMAC, not in terms of the opponent, in terms of the margin of victory, but nobody really cared about that. The story is that Angel Reese, for the second game in a row, did not dress nor play. And Kim Mulkey was asked about that situation in the post-game press conference, and there were a few back and forths, and Glenn Gilbo of Outkick was involved in a couple of them, and they got a little bit awkward. I wouldn't say necessarily overly testy or contentious, or it was just a little bit awkward in terms of the back and forth. And then Glenn wrote a column about it, and I'll just play this one Kim Mulkey soundbite, and I'll give my thoughts on the entire situation.
You always have to deal with locker room issues. That's just part of coaching. In 40 years, I can never think of a time where I didn't have to deal with issues. That's what coaches do. Sometimes y'all know about them and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want to know more than you're entitled to know. I'm going to protect my players, always. They are more important. It's like a family, Scott. Let me ask you this. If you do some disciplining of your own children, do you think we're entitled to know that? That's a family in that locker room. Those kids are like my children, and I'm not going to tell you what you don't need to know. And that's just the way I address things.
There's another back and forth where Glenn said, you know, is she going to go to the Caymans with y'all? And Kim said she's not going to answer. And Kim insinuated that Glenn had not been at any of the press conferences previously. And Glenn said, well, I have met you. I've been there. The fact of the matter is you've got a national championship winning coach in Kim Mulkey, who, you know, is the toast of Baton Rouge at this point. And you've got Glenn, who in his time has not been a purple and gold homer by any stretch of the imagination, and has at times stirred the pot. That's what Glenn has done over his time, but he's had a long career here covering sports in Baton Rouge, and I really enjoy Glenn's company. In this instance, I think Glenn is perfectly within his bounds, and honestly, kind of in his responsibility to say, hey, is Angel going to come back next week? Is Angel going to go to the Caymans with y'all? Is she practicing? Those are completely fair questions for a journalist to ask. And if Kim Mulkey wants to say, I'm not going to tell you about that, that is completely fine with me too. I don't believe that Kim Mulkey owes the media or the fan base or anybody explanations for what she's doing in terms of running her program, except for the people in it. You've got to talk to your players. You've got to communicate standards and expectations for your players. And if something happens internally and you want to do something about that, but you don't want that information getting out to the public, I think that's perfectly fine. And right now, the city of Baton Rouge is kind of looking around going, I'm not sure what's going on with Angel Reese. I don't know when she's coming back or if she's coming back. But Kim Mulkey has said, look, she's a part of the program. She'll be back sooner rather than later. Kim Mulkey doesn't have to say if she is or isn't suspended. She doesn't have to say if she is or isn't going to the Cayman Islands. She doesn't have to say when or if Angel Reese is coming back. And it's perfectly reasonable for a journalist to say, hey, Kim, is Angel Reese practicing? That's the question. And however Kim wants to answer that question is perfectly fine. This is one of those rare instances where I don't think anybody is out of bounds. I think that there was a little bit of awkwardness in the exchange between the two of them, and that just sometimes happens in the course of a press conference, especially when there's something going on. But the immediate reaction of most LSU fans when you hear that Glenn's asking the question and Kim's answering the question is to run in all your purple and gold and sit on Kim's side. And I'm just sitting here telling you that I heard the exchange. I've had multiple interactions with Glenn and Kim. I pull for LSU very hard, and I didn't think anybody was out of bounds here. It was just a standard journalist to coach interaction. Was it handled perfectly by both sides? No, I think that Kim had a little insinuation that Glenn never shows up to anything, and yeah, I think that it's a nothing story, but it becomes something because there's some question around what's going on within the program. But again, I think if you're casting stones here on either side, I would disagree. I'm not Joe journalist all the time, but I certainly have been in those press conferences and written some of those stories and have empathy for what the job entails. And when the most famous player in college basketball is being held out and we're not sure why or when she's coming back, it's fair for the journalist in the press conference to go, hey, can you tell us about that? And if Kim says no, then that's the end of the exchange. And Glenn wrote a column that I thought had some fair points and some points that I would disagree with, but that's the beauty of the opinion column. It is what it is. That's it for hour number 1 here on a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Come back after Sports Center. Jay Johnson met with the media. I've got some thoughts on the defending national champs in the fall. That's after Sports Center on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Running Boards Marketing can help you get their attention. Imagine your brand's message on a giant LED billboard truck that can't be skipped and is nearly impossible to ignore. Running Boards Marketing is the leader in effective and affordable advertising on digital mobile billboards, which are 2 times more effective than traditional billboards. With a 97% recall rate, you'll leave a lasting impression with your customers.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Would a couple that just came from a couples massage have any use for the massage seats of the Infiniti QX60? Yes, it appears they would. With driver and passenger massage seats, mute all your notifications and feel infinitely you.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
His name was King. He had a horse along the countryside. I saw him ride. One day they found him
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. For the second straight week, an AFC team has fired its offensive coordinator. Last week, the Bills with Ken Dorsey. Today, the Steelers dismissed Matt Canada. Pittsburgh 6-4, even with an offense near the bottom of the NFL in points, offensive yards, and passing yards, and has been outgained in each game this season. Unsportsmanlike co-host Chris Canty.
It's bad no matter how you want to slice it. Firing Matt Canada was a move that had to be made. To me, this is just the first step, but we're inching closer and closer toward the organization making the decision to sit Kenny Pickett on the bench in lieu of somebody else as the other option.
Kenny Pickett, 6 touchdown passes this season. Running backs coach Eddie Faulkner takes over OC duties. Quarterbacks coach Mike Sullivan takes the bulk of play calling responsibilities. The Colts, in a surprising move, waived former All-Pro and Pro Bowl linebacker Shaq Leonard. His performance had declined after recent injuries. If a team does claim Leonard off waivers, it would owe him a little over $6 million the remainder of this season. Baseball, the Padres hiring senior advisor and former Cardinals manager Mike Schilt as their new manager.
Hey, it's Michelle Smallman. Coming up Wednesday, I'll tell you the surprise team that will miss the playoffs. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something quite extraordinary?
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2, Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Thanks for hanging out with us. Working towards a little holiday, short weekend. I know most of you may not be working on Friday. We'll be working on Friday. Whether you're working like us or out and about on a Friday enjoying some time off with family, we'll be here and live and local all day long, starting at 7 a.m. with Off the Bench. We'll have live at lunch from Rufino's on a normal football Friday. I'll be here. Matt will be here as well until 6 o'clock, and we got some Louisiana high school football coming your way this Friday as well. So lock us in all day Friday for another football Friday. But we'll switch away from football here to start hour number 2 on this Tuesday because LSU fall baseball practice wrapped up in purple and gold World Series fashion on Sunday. And Jay Johnson met with the media yesterday to kind of recap all that was in the fall. With dad duties as they are, I was not able to get out there in the fall as much as I have over the last 10 years or so. I probably only saw 4 or 5 scrimmages that they had. Tried to keep my ear to the ground and try to follow along as things were progressing, but not as much firsthand experience for me this year, and that's why we haven't really talked a ton about baseball this fall. I know there are some of you that would rather just perish than move away from football in the fall, but some of you would love to hear some fall baseball, so we are going to give you a little bit of that here, and there's some Jay Johnson sound that stuck out to me in about his 25-minute meeting with the media. And one was a big question entering the fall. You lost Gavin Dugas at second base. You lost Jordan Thompson at shortstop. Those guys have moved on professionally. What are you going to do in the middle infield? Because there was not at the beginning of fall practice an obvious answer to either shortstop or second base based on prior performance, especially in this program. But Jay Johnson says that Michael Braswell is going to be your shortstop.
Michael Braswell, as of today, is clearly going to play shortstop. Like, that's not even a conversation or a question. Probably one of the biggest highlights of the fall has been his development from day one. We changed everything offensively and feel like he's in a really good spot. He led our team in hitting, hit a few home runs.
That's a really good sign, and that's exactly what Jay had in mind when they brought Michael Braswell in. You're talking about a guy in Braswell who was a very, very highly thought of high school player. And he signed with South Carolina, which, while hasn't been elite over the last 5 years, is a team that's enjoyed a ton of success this century in college baseball. And he came in there as a freshman, played a ton on the infield. He hit .284, had a nice on-base clip. Wasn't a power hitter, just 9 doubles, couple triples, couple homers. But as a freshman, defended his position, got on base at a high level for a freshman and figured to be in the, progression to a all league level player based on his high school pedigree and what he did as a freshman. And then last year, that kind of slowed down. He started 37 games for South Carolina, a really good South Carolina team when they were healthy, played in 51 games. His on-base percentage was .372, which isn't awful, but it's not good. And his slug was non-existent, .353. He had 3 triples, 8 doubles, and 1 home run. His batting average in league play was .261. Just kind of an off year offensively for him. But as you heard Jay Johnson say right there, he led the team in hitting in the fall. And I did see a lot of this in the scrimmages I was able to go to. Braswell's a tall kid, a long kid who's got obviously a lot of athletic ability. And he got the barrel of the bat on the baseball a good bit. Hit the ball hard, hit the ball in the gaps, hit a couple balls over the wall. I'm not asking for Michael Braswell to come in and replicate Gavin Dugas' offensive prowess. I'm not asking him to be a number 2 hole hitter or number 5 hole hitter. If he can get on base around 400, hit 5 or 6 home runs, and more importantly, make the plays at shortstop that the staff thinks he can absolutely make, that's what LSU needs from their shortstop. I don't believe Michael Braswell is going to be the first team all-league shortstop this year. If he is, fan-freaking-tastic. Awesome news. I'm not expecting him to do that. There are some other guys in this lineup that are going to have to carry a heavier workload offensively than Braswell, but I was concerned entering fall that there wasn't really an SEC shortstop on the roster. Braswell probably had the best chance to be that, and I think that showed itself in the fall, so I'm excited to see what he can do. Speaking of newcomers, this one on the mound. Jay Johnson spoke to the talented freshman left-hander who we didn't really expect to see on campus, but he's here. That's Cam Johnson.
Performance has been great. You got to be not very sharp to walk into a ballpark and see him step on the mound, throw one pitch, and not believe that guy has a chance to be something pretty special. I mean, the physical talent jumps out at you. I think what I've been impressed with Cam is how under control of himself he is, and that nothing has really sped up on him. He's doing a phenomenal job in school. He's doing a phenomenal job off the field. Kind of has a good synergy between that and getting on the mound and slowing things down and executing just the pitch in front of him. There's certainly pitching things that, like all our pitchers, he'll continue to work on and develop to add to his arsenal. But the talent is pretty special. But I think the mindset is really good.
I liked what I saw of Cam Johnson in the fall. It was only one outing, and I'm told that some of his outings were spectacular and some of his outings were a little bumpy, and it's more of a command issue with Cam than anything. And that's to be expected. Like I said, I think I said this about 4 weeks ago. 6'4", 6'5" left-handers that can throw 98 miles an hour. If they've got pinpoint control, they don't play college baseball. So you got to understand that when he shows up on campus, there has to be some development that goes on, or else he'd never be here. It just is that way. But there were some outings where he was darn near unhittable, and it's 96, 97, sometimes with a fastball. He does throw a good breaking ball, and the command was probably better than most anticipated when he got here. I'm slow to heap major expectations on freshman pitchers. It's just a different world from I can throw the fastball past you whenever I want in high school to like if I leave a fastball over the plate, it's going off the scoreboard. And that's the difference in the competition that you're playing when you make those two transitions. So for him to miss as many bats as he did in the fall, I think there is reason to believe he's going to be a high-leverage pitcher on the staff. I don't know if it's the Sunday starter. I don't know if it's a big-time guy out of the bullpen. I don't know if it's a closer. I don't know if it's the Saturday or Friday starter. We're leaving everything open as we sit here in November for a February start. But it would surprise me if he wasn't a key piece to the staff in some capacity by the middle of March next year. That would surprise me. I think it would surprise me a little bit if he was a weekend starter right out of the chute like Chase Shores was. And Shores transitioned to the bullpen, we know, and obviously unfortunately got hurt. But I think that he's got the goods. There's very little question about that. On the other side of things, Jay Johnson talked about Brady Neal, who was the starting catcher. He kind of won that job early. He was catching just about every game, and then had the injury, was just about ready to come back come Omaha time. He wasn't going to play for in the College World Series, but was ready to go to Cape Cod. And he went to Cape Cod and then got hurt again. And so he came back and was limited in what he could do in the fall. And the question's like, all right, well, what's his progression look like towards this his sophomore season?
Well, he's still working through that injury that sidelined him. Happy to say we were able to get him, about 30 at-bats at the back half of the fall. Hit some balls really hard. You could see maybe some of the gap in the missed time and development. Like, baseball is experiential. Like, you have to play to get better. But I'm pretty confident we have a good plan laid out for him to get ready. I think catching 2 games in a row will be difficult. It just will. His body may or may not allow him to do that.
But you've got Alex Milazzo and Hayden Travinski ready to go who can catch whenever they need to. So if Brady Neal can only catch on Sundays or only catch on whatever pitcher he wants to catch on Friday or Saturday, or got to sit him on Tuesdays, and that's part of it. The thing that bums me out with Brady Neal is that he's very young for his class. He showed up here as a very young player, and he's basically like almost missed a year of progression. I mean, he had to sit in April, and he's still not all the way back to participating, and we're done with fall ball. So we'll see where the bat goes. I mean, as Jay mentioned yesterday, he hit home runs off of Hagen Smith from Arkansas, probably the best left-hander in the league, and hit a home run off Chase Burns as well, maybe the most dominant stuff in the league outside of Skeens and Caglione maybe. I mean, and he hit home runs on those guys as freshmen, but he's just not able to get the work done because his back won't allow him to. And it's a good position for LSU in terms of their team because they have catchers that can carry the rest of that workload that are very much proven commodities. It just stinks for Brady that he's not able to do everything that he wants and needs to do at this point. And the last thing, and we'll get to this pretty quickly, is on the future of Alex Box Stadium and what that facility is right now. I mean, obviously, Jay Johnson comes into the Southeastern Conference from the Pac-12, and any investment that the SEC puts together is going to surpass what he's used to out west. But where is Alex Box Stadium in comparison with the rest of the SEC?
There's a lot of venues that are good in the SEC. I mean, we're just on a different planet, in terms of college baseball, and I'm proud to be on that planet. I think the separator for us is our fans. Our fans make it the best venue in college baseball. I think in terms of updating, modernizing, I think if you don't pay attention, then you can get left behind in some areas. I think we have a lot of smart people working here that are on top of it. Continuing to invest in it will be important. It's very clear, to them the things that I think are important that we need to do next. And that's all on player development and player amenities side, because that's my wheelhouse. And again, we have a lot of smart people for fan experience and those types of things, and our fans are the best. So I hope, they get treated best in terms of the venue. So, we're always on top of it, but they have a pretty clear picture about the things I want to do.
And look, this is not a surprise. Is it best for the fans for LSU to play their season opener at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? I guess it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon last year. No, it's not. But it's best for the team, LSU's team, to do it. So they played the season opener at 3 o'clock on a 24-hour notice. Is it best for the fans if they don't know who the starting pitcher is going to be or whether or not somebody's hurt? No. But he thinks it's best for the team. And so while he wants great things for the box and the fan experience, if you're going to give Jay Johnson an allotted budget, the first place he's going to spend that money is on his ability to develop baseball players. That's going to be the amenities they have there, the resources at their disposal from an analytics or a technology perspective. That's where he wants to make the biggest improvements. So I think that there will be changes made to the box in time that improve the comfort level and the fan experience. They're always going to continue to invest in this program, especially as well as it's being run right now. But Jay's thoughts are on the player lounge and the nutrition center and the pitching lab and the study hall stuff and all of that, as opposed to, are you sitting on metal bleachers out there? That's what his track record's been. So we'll see. I don't have any information on what the plans are at Alex Box Stadium. I can tell you this: LSU's baseball players are going to be taken care of in the best way, and they're going to have a really good team as long as Jay is here. Sharif Ishak's with us in 15 minutes. We'll switch back to football next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is that website. David Duvall and his team, been in the game 30 years, redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Just check out the website, OneBathAndClosets.com. Look at some of the pictures of their great work, whether it's in the bathroom or in the closet. Some of these are full-scale bathroom renovations, and David Duvall and One Bath and Closets handle them from start to finish. You make one phone call, he handles the entire thing. Maybe it's something smaller than that. It's a tub-to-shower conversion, something like that, where you don't use the tub. You pull it out, you put it in a glass walk-in shower that's gorgeous, one, and two, functions like you need it to, as opposed to that tub, which you don't ever use. And on the closet side, just declutter. Use that space a little bit more efficiently. Customize a closet to your exact needs. If you need help with financing, David Duvall and his team can do that at One Bath and Closets. Check out that website, OneBathAndClosets.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared towards seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
The interior of an Infiniti is thoughtfully designed to be all about you. And by you, we mean every version of you. Because there's luxury you can feel, and there's luxury that lets you feel. Infinitely you. Experience luxury like never before with Infiniti Premium Care, included with the 2023 QX80 at your local retailer.
Running Boards Marketing can help you get their attention. Imagine your brand's message on a giant LED billboard truck that can't be skipped and is nearly impossible to ignore. Running Boards Marketing is the leader in effective and affordable advertising on digital mobile billboards, which are 2 times more effective than traditional billboards. With a 97% recall rate, you'll leave a lasting impression with your customers.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, powered by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere dealer in Louisiana. Talking quarterbacks with Sean Salisbury, and Shea Dixon has a recruiting update. Join us 3 to 6, 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Sharif Ishaq will join us in about 10 minutes talking Saints and Pels. Saints headed to Atlanta this weekend. We Chatted with Michael Rothstein back in the first hour about the Dirty Birds, so we'll get the Saints side of things from Sharif coming up here shortly. I want to go to some Brian Kelly sound from yesterday yesterday. My days are shot right now with all this that's going on. Yesterday was Monday. It doesn't feel like Tuesday, which is a very good thing. But yeah, Brian Kelly on Monday was talking about LSU on the defensive line moving forward into the future. I think everyone has kind of resigned themselves to the fact that LSU's defense is going to be what it is against Texas A&M and whatever bowl game they play in. It is what it is. It's just not a great unit, and they're going to have to spend a significant amount of time in the offseason figuring out what to do with this defense. And one of the things that Brian Kelly pointed to yesterday was Mekhi Wingo, who we thought coming in was as good a defensive player as LSU had. Certainly Mason Smith was in that discussion, and obviously Harold Perkins was as well. Mekhi Wingo coming off of an All-American type season as a sophomore, and Kelly talked about the decision that Mekhi Wingo will have to make when this season's over.
I mean, we're going to recruit Mekhi. Mekhi's got to make a decision, relative to whether he thinks, coming back for another year is in his best interest. We're obviously going to give him a lot of data in terms of what we think is in his best interest, and we'll let him and his family and those that are helping him make his decision, process through that.
And it's interesting because, Mekhi is a junior. He does not have a COVID year to lean back on. He played in 21, 22, and 23. So he's only got 2 more years to play one in college football. But for all intents and purposes, he's not redshirting unless he gets hurt. You're talking about a guy who's got 1 year left of college football. And on the baseball side of things, you really have to go after your junior year if finances are important to you, because you just can't make anything as a senior. That's not the case in football. You can make plenty as a senior, an NFL draft pick, and maximizing your draft potential means a lot. And I just have a hard time thinking that Mekhi Wingo, coming off the season that he's played, as compromised as he's been with injuries, is going to be as draftable as he should be coming up in this year's draft. Because the tape from this year is just not what it was the first 2 years. So you're either going to trust NFL teams to take the film from 21 and 22 and just say, hell, he'll get back to that, or you go prove that you're back to that next year. May happen, may not, but there's certainly some upward mobility for Mekhi Wingo at this point. I would think that it would be best served for him to maximize his financial opportunity to come back. Do I think he's going to come back? I don't. But we'll see. Brian Kelly also talked about the work that they're going to have to do to supplement their defensive line, whether or not Mekhi Wingo comes back.
So that position in itself, the defensive line, interior help is where we're looking, to help our football team. We think we're in a pretty good position at the edge of our defense. We need to get bigger. And so I think the defensive tackle position will be probably the area that you'll see us, move aggressively.
And if you look at defensive tackle right now, you've got Mason Smith, who is a redshirt sophomore at this point. I think it would be a colossal mistake for him to leave. I very, very rarely say that about college athletes. Everyone's situation is different. Everyone's information is different. Do what you think is best for you. But based on the injury and the production this year and what the tape would look like, I think he would be a long shot, in my opinion, to make an NFL team. I don't know if he makes LSU better next year or not. But I think that considering the NFL would be a mistake, in my opinion, for Mason Smith. Then you've got Jacobian Guillory, who's got another year left that he can come back and play. You've got Jalen Lee, who's got another year he can come back and play. You've got Jordan Jefferson, who's got another year he can come back and play. Does he? I don't know. That's 4 years of college football for Jordan Jefferson. You've got a COVID year if you'd like it. Depends on what he wants to do. And after that, you're dealing with Bryce Langston, Tyjee Hill, Fitzgerald West, guys that haven't really played much. So that's with Mekhi, healthy Mekhi, you've got a pretty reasonable place to start. And then you got to go to the transfer portal and try to supplement that with some difference makers on the defensive line. The problem is that everyone is looking for defensive linemen in the transfer portal. Everyone is. It's such a hard place to recruit to because there just aren't that many 285, 290-pound guys who are agile and tough and fundamentally sound and productive. There just aren't that many of them. So LSU's going to have to try to make that happen. As far as the edge goes, you're going to lose Ovie Ogofu. Braden Swinson's got a year if he wants to come back. You've got Savion Jones if he wants to come back. I would imagine he would. You got Deshaun Womack. You've got Quincy Wiggins. Like, that's a group of guys who, on a talent level perspective, should be productive players. Now, they're all on this team, and LSU's not great on the edges and in rushing the passer and that kind of thing. So it's certainly not a slam dunk. But from a recruiting perspective, those guys were pretty highly thought of. And we'll see if you can bring in anybody in this class that can play right away on the edge. It would be difficult to beat some of those guys out, and it's not like your class is littered with them right now. You only have one edge player in the entire class to this point, and you're knocking down the door of signing day, and that's C.J. Jackson, who's a four-star from Georgia. So I think they could use some help on the edge as well, depending on what Perkins does next year, which I'd imagine would be play linebacker. It's just tough for me to sit here and look at LSU's defense and look at returning players and point to that guy and go, yeah, he'll be a stud playmaker next year. Outside of Perkins, who I think you can pretty much trust, everybody else, I'm fine bringing in competition to help. Anybody who's willing to come to LSU and fight for an opportunity on defense is worth vetting, and then you decide which ones you want to take. I don't see any position on the board that I go, I think they're good. I don't see one. You've got to go find some guys on the defensive side of the football to help you. And that could be in the transfer portal and should be in the transfer portal, and then maybe in a signing class, and then certainly you've got to continue to coach the guys that you've got and try to get big jumps out of Deshaun Womack, Savion Jones, Quincy Wiggins, those types of guys. You've got to try to find that somehow, some way. But that's a problem for another day. This week, you just got to get ready for a third-team quarterback and try to beat Texas A&M and win your 9th game of the season. We'll take a time out. When we come back, Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, we'll chat with Sharif Ishak from WDSU on the Saints and Pels.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electric. Boudreaux's Electric. Certified Generac generator dealer. Not just that, premier Generac generator dealer. That means they're in the top 3% nationwide. Neil and Melissa Boudreaux been running the company for 40 years. Listen up, listeners of the Hunt Palmer Show. If you give Boudreaux's Electric a call, I'm going to give you the phone number here in a second, but if you call them between now and Christmas and agree to have a generator installed at your home or your business, they're going to give you a deal. I'm just telling you. So give them a call. Tell them you heard about it on the Hunt Palmer Show. There are savings to be had between now and Christmas. So you got a month, but give them a call. That number, 225-300-9389, 225-300-9389. Protect yourself from power outages, especially during storm season, with a Generac generator from Boudreaux's Electric. Give them a call. That number one more time, 225-300-9389.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge. Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
His name's Cain. He had a horse along the countryside. I saw him ride. One day they found him.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Would a couple that just came from a couples massage have any use for the massage seats of the Infiniti QX60? Yes, it appears they would. With driver and passenger massage seats, mute all your notifications and feel infinitely you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated.
Jimmy Ott and Charles Hannegriff. It's Thanksgiving Eve, Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch, live from the original Walk-Ons on Burbank. Live at Lunch, Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. from Walk-Ons on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Back out to the Jim's Firearms Hotline we go. Sharif Ishak, WDSU, Saints, and Pels every single Tuesday here. And he joins us now. Sharif, how are you, sir?
I was just saying how wrong I was about the Pelicans. After we talked last week, I said the Mavs would demolish them, and that didn't happen.
Nope.
And the Saints couldn't break anyone's hearts this past weekend, so that's good news. So I guess everything's good.
Also true, but the Saints could certainly do that this weekend. We'll see, but the Falcons are not very good either. Had a long conversation in hour number one with Michael Rothstein, who covers the Falcons, and it's just, what team would you bet on over the next 3 years in the NFC South? Does anybody feel like they're moving in the right direction in that division?
No. The
Nobody.
Saints are too old. No, the Saints are too old on defense. They have some nice pieces on both sides of the ball, but do you trust Derek Carr moving forward under this, coaching staff? Do you think Dennis Allen and that coaching staff will be together? Unlikely. Dennis Allen's probably going to survive this year. He's going to fire the entire coaching staff on the offensive side. The Falcons are always a mess because they don't know how to draft the right way. The Panthers are, well, you saw what they did, picked the wrong quarterback. The Buccaneers they got their one Super Bowl, and now it's pretty much a wrap for a while with them. They're just a mess as well. So if I had to bet on one team, probably the Saints. At least that they draft decently. I'm not giving them 100% grade on anything, but at least they draft decently and can develop some players.
How do you feel about the draft they just had? I think that Brzee has been pretty good, and I mean, everybody was just dogging Foskey, and probably for good reason in August, but he showed up a couple of times. And what do you think about this young draft class?
I would say incomplete.
Well, definitely, but how do we feel right now?
I don't, honestly, I really don't like it that much.
Okay.
Outside of Brzee, and Kendre Miller has been hurt. He was hurt at TCU. I think he has potential. Foskey has potential. Brian Brzee is showing his potential. So for the most part, it's okay. A.T. Perry, he also has that potential. He was great at Wake Forest. So maybe we see a little bit more of him with Michael Thomas down.
All right, well, let's talk about that wide receiving crew with Michael Thomas down, and Derek Carr is kind of a question mark. I don't know if you know anything more, but how is that going to affect the Saints passing game on Sunday?
He's going to be cleared and ready to play Sunday.
Yeah.
So he'll be back for that game. I don't know if fans are going to like it or not, but he'll be back for the Falcons game. But then they have Marquez Callaway. He's back on the roster.
Yeah.
So Dennis Allen said they did some self-evaluation during a bye week. Now let's see if the whole saying and doing thing actually happens, because they say the right things and sometimes just don't do it. So let's see if they actually do the right things. And what I think is their most important game of the season.
Can they run the ball? Are they going to be able to run the ball?
That has been the Achilles heel for them this season. They have the running backs, but for some reason they choose not to run consistently. They ran the ball awesome against the Colts, and then just forgot how to run the ball after that. It's just what is going on? I honestly don't understand how this so-called decent offensive line, not the greatest. There was this 3-game stretch hunt where they only gave up 2 sacks, but they weren't really running the ball consistently well. If you can't run the ball consistently, then you're not going to throw the ball. And then I just don't understand this offense. There's no what else they don't do well? They used to do so great is the screen game. You might have seen 1 or 2 good screens this year. Kendra Miller had 1 of the 2 good screens. I think he actually got hurt on that play when he had that screen play a couple of weeks ago in the win over the Bears. It's just the consistency with this team. They are just an inconsistent football team. They're consistent at being inconsistent.
You said the Saints defense is getting old. Why do you say that?
Well, they're team captains who they gut through all their injuries and any problems they have, and Cam Jordan, Demario Davis. There's nothing there up front to me. And they're just getting older. Tyron's up there in age. Marcus May's up there in age. Lattimore's hurt. They do have some young talent, but they're just getting older. And you can just kind of see it at times. They're playing sluggish. They started slowly in 5 straight games now, and in the first half. The second half defense would be all pro. They'd be unstoppable if they had an offense to go with it. But it's just so much inconsistency from each side of the ball. But the defense just looks slow and old, huh? I mean, it is what it is.
But it didn't look that way. It didn't look that way in September, though. So is it just because you're 10 weeks in now, or is it because okay?
Yeah. I mean, they've gotten 10 games into the season, and I think teams have also figured them out a little bit defensively. They just know they cannot create any kind of pass rush. I mean, when you have 18 sacks and 18 takeaways, does that seem like a problem to you? It's a great problem to have the 18 takeaways.
18 takeaways is good.
Yeah, 18 sacks, not so good. So that means your secondary is essentially making good plays at times. Sometimes the ball's thrown right at them, but most of the time they're making good plays. I mean, that's just how it's been. Without that pressure up front, I worry about this team. It almost looks like it's a disingenuous first place in the NFC South, because what is going to happen? All right, they go 9-8, they win a division. They get the Cowboys and the Seahawks in the first round. Do you think this team can actually beat one of those 2 teams at home the way they've really played at home lately? Probably not. It's going to be tough sledding if they cannot figure it out in the final 7 weeks. And just the way they play, I just don't know, Hunt. I don't know how they do it defensively if they are continuing to get older and slower, not creating that pass rush.
You still feeling like 9-8 is the most likely scenario?
Yeah, because that division is an absolute dumpster fire. I mean, there's no other way to say it. You got 5-5 and a couple 4-6 teams. I mean, come on. It's just as bad as it was last season. If you can get to 9 wins, you can win the NFC South and host that playoff game at home and maybe steal a win like the Seahawks did from the Saints in 2010 whenever Marshawn Lynch had that run.
Do you think they beat the Falcons on Sunday?
And no Lattimore. Man, it's tough about Marshawn Lattimore, but yeah. I think they do. I mean, you give Dennis Allen 2 weeks to go against Desmond Ridder. I kind of hope they do. I mean, Desmond Ridder is a good quarterback. That team's a bigger mess. Like I told you, they're a much bigger mess than the Saints. So, yeah, it's going to be one of those field goal type of games. I mean, it's going to be tough for the Saints to run away with the win the way they've been playing.
Sharif Ishak, WDSU, is our guest, talking Saints and Falcons coming up on Sunday. But Pels are playing a little better. Last time we spoke, they had lost 5 in a row. Then they beat Dallas, and then they beat Denver, and then they lost a tough one to Minnesota, and then they crushed Sacramento on this homestand. So the Kings one more time tomorrow. Excuse me, before we head out west. Your thoughts on the last 4 games?
I told you whenever we talked last Tuesday, I didn't feel confident about them beating the Mavs the second time around. Because I did tell you if they were to beat that team, I needed two players to start showing that they're the best duo in the NBA. And look, they started showing they were the best duo in the NBA. Zion and B.I. have really come to play and played really hard. Now, if they would have had Zion Saturday against the T-Wolves, they'd be on a little winning streak here. But I will say the effort and energy that they've been looking for has certainly been there since that Mavs win last week. So, yeah, I mean, Dyson and Herb, let me tell you, that's a good 1-2 punch defensively. I mean, the job they did last night on De'Aaron Fox, I think he was 2 of 13 from 3, but that was mostly Dyson Daniels. He's improved his shot as well, and Herb Jones has improved his shot. But if he is not first-team all-defense this year, it'd be a shock, to be honest with you, how well Herb has played defensively. But if they can continue this starting lineup that they have out there with B.I., Zion, Herb, JV, and Dyson, is a nice starting lineup. And it's starting to be – last night I think they were plus 37. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. You can throw those guys out there, and they can give you some defense. And JV, I think he feels very comfortable now in James Borrego's offense, and he's been able to work. And that's been the guy who's been a sleeper in terms of their offense and the way they've been able to create. But the way they've been cutting the last 3 or 4 games without the ball has been a big reason why they've been successful offensively.
Jose Alvarado returns. Is he going to give him any kind of a spark?
Oh, he gave him a spark last night. It was nice to see him return to the court last night. You can just feel the energy with him out there and just how happy he was. He said, if you see me crying tears, it'd be because it's tears of joy after not playing, the first 13 games of the season. So, and then CJ was back at practice today. Larry's back at practice. No update on when they're returning, their timetable to return, but you're starting to feel like, they're getting closer. The next piece is going to be getting back, another really important player in Trey. When you get Trey back, that's going to be a really, dangerous team if they can all stay healthy.
Are you doing any cooking for Thanksgiving, or are you just doing the eating?
I do a lot of the eating, man. I don't really know. I don't really cook that well. I mean, I cook healthy food, and I eat brown rice, baked chicken, steamed vegetable. People make fun of the way I eat because I eat too healthy.
All right. Well, what's the must-have side for you on Thanksgiving?
Ooh, man, that's a great question. I do like cranberries, man. I'm a cranberry person. Although I'm not supposed to eat much of it because of my heartburn and GI issues. They told me no, chill out on the cranberry stuff. So I don't listen, and then I wonder why I have such bad heartburn. But I eat raw cranberries too. Probably not good for me either, even though they're good for you. You're not supposed to eat a lot of them. But yeah, I like cranberry. I'm a big cranberry guy.
Interesting. That's not what I saw coming. But hey, you just enjoy what you need to enjoy on Thanksgiving. We'll talk next week, Sharif. Thanks.
I'm a boring person, man. I'll tell you that much.
That's why we have you every week, so you can be as boring as possible. Thanks.
Yes, I am vanilla. Yes, absolutely.
Sharif Ishak, WDSU, with us each and every Tuesday, even though he's a boring person. We'll come back and close it up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
It was a humid day. Barefoot children play. Looking for that summer shade. Time to slip away. Like cypress stumps, your roots are planted deep inside of me.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
The interior of an Infiniti is thoughtfully designed to be all about you. And by you, we mean every version of you. Because there's luxury you can feel, and there's luxury that lets you feel. Infinitely you. Experience luxury like never before with Infiniti Premium Care, included with the 2023 QX80 at your local retailer.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Yourself the holiday gift of uninterrupted power. Call 225-387-5017 or visit cesofla.com.
Cut through the static and listen to 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge in high definition. Simply tune to 98.1 and select HD2.
Bayou Ford and Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. 5 brands on one lot. Shop BayouAutomotive.com.
Voisin inviting you to join me and Coach Todd Black Wednesday night at 6 for Louisiana Prep Weekly. Our special guest will be Notre Dame head football coach Louis Cook. It's Louisiana Prep Weekly, live from Walk-Ons in Town Center, Wednesday night at 6 on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Congratulations to Anthony Smith. Anthony is our Week 12 winner in the 2023 Twin Peaks College Football Pick'em Contest and wins a Twin Peaks gift card. Don't forget to make your picks for the final week of this season's contest, Week 13 by noon on Turkey Day. Play the 2023 Twin Peaks College Football Pick'em today at 1045ESPN.com.
All right, let's close up shop here. It's a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We are so loaded for tomorrow's show. Going to do a lot of the things that we do sometimes on other days of the week. J.D. Piquel in his normal spot. We'll ask J.D. about the Heisman and about rivalry weekend coming up. It's What If Wednesday. We'll do that as well. I'm going to do best win, worst loss, and a survivor pick for the NFL because I'm still alive in survivor somehow. And then we've got Ole Miss, Mississippi State that I've got to get my pick for as we try to stay above 500 in SEC picks. Luke Johnson is going to come on tomorrow. He's usually a Thursday guest, but he'll come on tomorrow. Travis Brown from the Bryan College Station Eagle covering Texas A&M will come on. We got our SEC power ranking. So, my whole show is already booked for tomorrow, and we haven't even finished up this one. So that's a good feeling that we've already gotten that all figured out. So really, really fired up. If you're traveling tomorrow and not looking forward to a lot of time in the car, lock us in. We'll be here, and I got a lot to get to on tomorrow's show. But before we finish up, let's play some Take It or Leave It.
All right, first one here. Tom Brady was on the Stephen A. Smith show yesterday and said, I think there's a lot of mediocrity in today's NFL. I don't see the excellence that I saw in the past. I think the coaching isn't as good as it was. I don't think the development of young players is as good as it was. I don't think the schemes are as good as they were. Brady is right. Take it or leave it.
I'll be completely honest. I couldn't possibly answer that. I have no idea what I'm looking at or why the Ravens defense was better 15 years ago than it is now or why the Dolphins. I mean, I have no idea. I have a feeling that I think Tom is probably looking at the NFL like you would if you were in college and you went back and went to a high school game. You're like, these guys suck. When you were that guy, you were that guy 2 years ago. That's what it feels like, at least. And like, Tom is not that far removed from the league. It wasn't like he played 17 years ago. He played 24 months ago. So I think that's a little bit of an overreaction. If I had to guess, I would imagine the game is actually evolving instead of devolving. Guys are bigger, faster, stronger. I don't think that there's some sort of dearth of coaching ability in the NFL. I mean, Belichick's getting his brains kicked in every day if he's supposed to be really good. So I would leave that.
Pittsburgh Steelers have fired offensive coordinator Matt Canada after being outgained in 31 of the 45 games he coached dating back to 2021. The Steelers clearly didn't watch any of his LSU tape. Take it or leave it.
You know, he did put up some points at LSU. He was good against Alabama. Like, they put up some points in that game in Tuscaloosa. They just didn't get enough stops in that game. Look, I'll leave it. I think they probably were aware of who they were hiring. It's all the motions. It's all the jet sweeps. Still one of the most stark contrasts I've ever seen from a first half and a second half was the LSU-Troy game that LSU lost, where LSU came out and ran their offense in the first half. It didn't go very well, and Ed Ogeron told Matt Canada to stop running motions for the entire second half, which they did. That didn't work. But it's an odd career trajectory for Matt Canada. You look at the move from Pittsburgh to LSU, and you're like, well, that's a guy that's clearly on the rise, and then all of a sudden he pops out and he's coaching the offense of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
It's not where I would have forecasted he'd go after he was let go at LSU, but eventually worked his way to that. I think he's probably a pretty good offensive coach, but if you want to run all that motion stuff and misdirection and jet sweeps, I think the college level is probably a better spot for you. So I'm sure he'll land on his feet, but not a tremendous reception he was getting in Pittsburgh for much of his tenure there.
All right, last one here. This is definitely one of my most favorite stories I've read this year. 50-year-old former MVP and 10-time All-Star Ichiro Suzuki pitched a complete game shutout, 116 pitches at that, and went 2 for 5 with a double in an exhibition game in Japan against an all-star team of high school girls. Also, Daisuke Matsuzaka was batting cleanup and played shortstop. Ichiro and Daisuke against high school girls. Take it or leave it.
I mean, I'm going to leave this. Ichiro's in the majors like not that long ago. I mean, I realize he was very, very old at that point, but like, and do they have I guess they have girls baseball in Japan. I mean, that's
I think so, but
reasonable thing to have.
Yeah, the story that I read was that they played this game. They actually played a similar game last year, and apparently they're trying to drum up more interest for girls playing baseball. So that's why they're doing this.
I mean, I'm all for it if they want to have girls high school baseball leagues in Japan or whatever. I think softball is tailored to women, and I actually really enjoy watching softball because of how quick it is. I think I love that it's been kind of tailored to the female athlete. I don't think there's anybody in high school that needs to be facing Ichiro ever, because I wouldn't put it past Ichiro to get in there against a big leaguer and put the ball in play right now. And the contrast between that and a high school girl is insane. I'm shocked that Daisuke only went 2 for 5.
No, Ichiro went 2 for 5.
Oh my! Wait a second. So a girl's got Ichiro out 3 times.
Apparently,
that's incredible. I would make a poster out of that or something. Get a plaque, certainly a signed ball. I'm stunned that they got him out 3 times. So shout out to whatever high school girls team that is. I think they're probably gonna have a pretty good season this year. But it's a good idea to get 2 guys that have got that much of a reputation, get out there and do some things, and I'm sure it's a big thrill for the girls high school team. I'm shocked he didn't throw I'm sure he would pitch a complete game shutout if he's throwing 80, 85 miles an hour.
Yeah, apparently he was topping out at 86.
I mean, they're not going to hit that. That's not going to happen. So, but I'm impressed that they got him out. So good on them for making that happen. So that'll do it for Take It or Leave It. Tonight, sports trivia, Pluckers, Nicholson location, 8:30, watching college hoops, calling out trivia questions. You can win gift cards, drink some delicious cold beers, eat some awesome wings. Always a really, really good time. If you're kind of taking it easy this week on the work front or the school front, Pluckers, awesome spot. We start at 8:30, get you out of there by 10 o'clock. Always a really good time. So you can bring a team or you can come solo. There's some really smart dudes that do this, and they get a lot of questions right. Beck showed up one time, and it can be a little difficult to compete with these folks, but it's always a lot of fun. So come on out and hang with us. I'm excited for next week's sports trivia. where LSU plays Syracuse at 6. That'll end at like 8:15, and we'll go right into trivia next week. But this week, we'll just watch some generic Feast Week college football hoops and do some sports trivia. Always a fun time at Pluckers. Certainly will be on this Thanksgiving Tuesday. Had some Brian Kelly sound on the LSU offensive line. My thoughts on that group at the top of the show today. Michael Rothstein joined us from ESPN.com. He covers the Falcons. Glenn West of Go 24/7 talking Tigers. My thoughts on the Angel Reese, Kim Mulkey, Glenn Gilbo presser from last night at 1:45. Jay Johnson sound from yesterday. If you want some baseball in your day, you can do that at the top of hour number 2. And Sharif Ishak with us at the bottom of hour number 2. Catch it all on demand wherever you find your audio, or of course on YouTube. That's it for us on a Tuesday. Matt's going to drive you home. We're back tomorrow, same time, same place. The Hunt Palmer Show.
The importance of doing this fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's